You're scrolling through social media and suddenly you see a headline. Scientists think octopuses came from outer space. 8 arms, shape-shifting skin, color-changing camouflage, and now aliens too? So, did these weird, brilliant animals really arrive on Earth from space? No. Octopuses did not come from space. But the fact that this headline spread so fast tells us something very important. How crucial science communicators and science journalists are for the health of public understanding of science. If we reduce science only to doing research in labs and universities, we end up with a dangerous situation. Scientists stay in their ivory towers. They speak only to each other in technical language. They have no real idea what the public understands, misunderstands, fears, or needs. In that world, scientists might keep producing great work, but ordinary people stay in the dark. That's why we need science communicators and science journalists, people and projects that translate complex research into language the public can actually understand without distorting it. But there's a catch. If these communicators are careless, they can spread confusion just as fast as they spread knowledge. The Octopus from Space story is a perfect example. This headline didn't come out of nowhere. It was loosely inspired by a real scientific paper. The paper discussed a speculative idea called the panspermia hypothesis. Very briefly, panspermia says life didn't necessarily start on Earth. It might have evolved on another planet through natural processes like abiogenesis. Then fragments of that life, such as microbes, bacteria, maybe even viruses, were thrown into space by asteroid impacts. Some of those rocks eventually landed on Earth, bringing the seeds of life with them. Most scientists do not think panspermia is the best explanation for the origin of life. It's an interesting idea, but evidence is very limited, and it's far from a mainstream conclusion. The controversial paper argued something like this: octopuses are extremely strange compared to many other animals. Their bodies and nervous systems are highly unusual. So maybe, the authors suggested, octopus ancestors didn't evolve entirely on Earth. They speculated that perhaps some virus or genetic material from space arrived on Earth and somehow helped transform earlier cephalopods into modern octopuses. Even the authors themselves seemed to realize how far out this sounded. At one point, the idea shifts to something like, maybe the octopus itself didn't come from space, but perhaps a virus from space infected early cephalopods on Earth and drove their evolution into something as bizarre as modern octopuses. So we're already deep into science fiction territory, not solid, evidence-based consensus. The problem isn't just that the idea is weird. Science can handle weird. The problem is that it clashes with what we already know. First, there's the octopus genome. Scientists sequenced the octopus genome around 2015. When they examined it, they found many fascinating features, but nothing alien. Octopuses share a huge number of genes with other animals on Earth, including us humans. Their genetic material fits into the big evolutionary tree of life on this planet. Just from that fact alone, the octopus is an alien claim becomes extremely unlikely. Second, virologists, scientists who study viruses, tore apart the space virus idea. Viruses are not universal keys. They don't infect just any random life form. They usually evolve alongside their hosts and recognize very specific receptors on the host's cells. A virus that evolved on a completely different planet, in a completely different biochemical context, almost certainly would not be compatible with life on Earth. The odds that some random alien virus could land here and perfectly infect earthly cephalopods, and then also drive exactly the right mutations to create octopuses, is astronomically low. So both genetics and virology strongly contradict this octopus from space narrative. That's why many scientists responded quickly to that paper, explaining that its claims were wildly speculative and inconsistent with existing evidence. So, how did we go from a speculative paper about panspermia that mentions octopuses to science proves octopuses are aliens? Simple. Bad headlines and oversimplified reporting. Many readers only see the title, never the article. If the headline says, "Octopuses Octopuses may be aliens from space. That's what sticks. In that moment, science journalism stops being a bridge and becomes a trap. Instead of helping people understand science better, it creates myths that are very hard to erase later. And yet, the blame doesn't lie only with journalists. Scientists themselves sometimes make things worse, often unintentionally. Scientists love metaphors, jokes, and cultural references. They often assume, my colleagues will understand what I mean. It'll be fine. But the public is listening too, and words matter. Take the famous Higgs boson. Thanks to the media, a huge number of people know it as the God particle. That name created the impression that the discovery of the Higgs boson had something to do with proving the existence of God. It didn't. The nickname actually came from a frustrated joke. Because the particle was so hard to detect, one physicist supposedly called it the goddamn particle, as in, this goddamn particle is impossible to find. When it came time to publish, the word damn was considered too rude, so it was dropped. What remained? The God particle. The media loved it. It sounded dramatic and mysterious, but it also seeded endless confusion about physics and religion, confusion that had nothing to do with the actual science. And physics isn't the only field guilty of this. Biologists have their own loaded metaphors. You might have heard of Mitochondrial Eve and Y-chromosome Adam. These terms describe something technical, but straightforward. Mitochondrial Eve is the most recent woman from whom all humans today inherited their mitochondrial DNA through an unbroken line of mothers. Y-chromosome Adam is the most recent man from whom all men today inherited their Y chromosome through an unbroken line of fathers. Sounds dramatic, but here's what people often get wrong. They were not the only man and woman alive at the time. They lived in populations that contained many other people. Those other people also had children and grandchildren, but over many generations, some lineage branches simply died out, while others continued. Mitochondrial Eve and Y-chromosome Adam were not a couple. They didn't live together as some mythical first pair. In fact, they didn't even live in the same era. Genetic studies suggest that there were thousands of years between them. So the names Eve and Adam easily invite a misleading comparison to religious stories. Even though the scientific concept has nothing to do with the biblical narrative, once again, a catchy name makes the concept more memorable, but also more prone to deep misunderstanding. Scientists will always use metaphors, inside jokes, and shorthand. That's normal. That's human. But once those terms leave the lab and meet the public, science communicators have a heavier responsibility. They need to explain the context, separate speculation from established fact, resist the urge to choose clickbait titles that mislead more than they inform, and clarify where metaphors end and reality begins. Because if we don't, we end up with octopuses are aliens. The Higgs boson proves God. Science has found the literal Adam and Eve. None of those claims are true, yet they spread faster than careful explanations. So, let's set the record straight. Octopuses did not come from outer space. They are extraordinary animals, but firmly part of Earth's evolutionary family. The Higgs boson is not proof of God. It's a key piece of our understanding of how particles acquire mass. Nothing more mystical than that. Mitochondrial Eve and Y chromosome Adam are useful genetic concepts, but they are not the biblical couple, nor a lonely man and woman at the start of humanity. Science doesn't need sensational myths to be fascinating. Reality is already more than weird enough. If you want more people to see science clearly, the solution is simple. Be curious, be critical, and support careful, honest science communication. The kind that informs rather than confuses. Thanks for watching. If you found this helpful, hit the like button, share it with friends, and subscribe so you don't miss the next video. See you next time.